Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT business, whether you are running a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce our guest for today. We have Justin Gilliam over at Bacheler Technologies, serving as the Nashville Operations Manager. Justin, how are you today?
Good, man. How are you?
I can't complain. It's better than good, better than most, as I like to say. I think today has been pretty lax for so far. It's been an enjoyable time here. As you can all see, we are on location at the MSP Summit thrown by Channel Futures here in Orlando, Florida, and had the opportunity to serve as a moderator for a great panel on MSPs to Rise. And this was a new list, MSPs to watch, I should say. And Justin was one of the panelists here, and he was gracious enough to kind of come on the podcast, give us his story, and talk a little bit more about how he's doing things in his neck of the woods. But before we kind of go into all that, Justin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of came into the space, and how you found yourself over at Bacheler Technologies? And I know that's a loaded question, so feel free to take the time.
Yeah, we've been around for 10 years, so there's 10 years of history to go through. I'll try to summarize it, make it quick. But essentially, I started out as internal IT for just a enterprise company, and I got pretty bored doing the same thing day to day. Then I went to work for an MSP, actually as like a help desk analyst. Got really excited with the new and changing every single day, something different, That's kind of lit a fire under me. I went up the ranks pretty quickly, that MSP. Left that MSP and started my own with my partner in 2015. We started our own MSP in 2015, and we've kind of taken it off from there. Partner of mine passed away in 2020, and about 2 years after that, we decided to merge with another company called Bacheler, based out of Montgomery, Alabama. Okay. So we have offices in Montgomery, Alabama, and Nashville, Tennessee.
Gotcha. Very cool. Now, you talked about merger and making the decision to join forces. How did that kind of came about? Was it more of just looking on providing a better impact to not only your clients, but maybe into another market? Were you looking at possibly augmenting a need that you had at the time and being able to scale at that point? Kind of where was your mindset and back then? Condolences to your business partner who had passed away. I'm assuming that may have contributed to some of that decision making 2 years after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had, like I said, 2 years into it, after he'd passed, his wife was running it with me as well, and she was ready to get out. She was ready to just too much to handle and run. Mm-hmm. He was actually friends with Craig Bacheler, which is the owner of Bacheler Technologies. So they were close friends already. Yeah. And so they had known each other and been in discussions. But as far as my mindset goes, I met with Craig Bacheler and his partner, and then I decided that it would be a really good fit, really easy transition, because our models were identical with our support model, our service offerings. They were all identical. Okay. What came from that was a lot more volume buying power, because they already had about 100 clients in Montgomery, Alabama. So as we got that name and we got established with them, we got a lot more security tools that we couldn't really afford prior to that merger. Okay. So it came with a lot more tools that we could apply for our clients.
Okay. Because I know just there's always a lot of conversation about M&A and when is the right time, what's the right avenue, and so it sounds like it was a natural fit, right? And it kind of just aligned in that way, and I can understand that. Being similar to here, we had just went through an acquisition ourselves, and we knew we probably were going to sell. We just didn't know when we were going to go ahead and sell. And so things just ended up aligning to a point where we had the ability to keep some of our identity. Our branding stayed intact, but also being able to scale to the point where introducing different tools and things of that nature. Now, kind of as you readjusted things and working when similarly and having some of the similar tools and things probably made that much more easier for a mesh. Can you talk a little bit about how that transition for you going from, I imagine, obviously you were running your MSP with a partner. Now you have a new set of partners and a whole different market that you're probably assisting in, but also maintaining your operations in your market. Talk a little bit about kind of how did that culminated and how that conversation went about.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about Bacheler is they were utilizing the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. That model where they had weekly meetings. You had your L10, your level 10 leadership meetings, quarterly all days. That sort of structure was already in place. That made the transition a lot easier for us to kind of help bounce ideas off of one another when it came to what are they dealing with in Montgomery, what are we dealing with in Nashville. We have weekly meetings to discuss those issues, and then I can also bounce ideas off of the leadership team. We have 6 other people on the leadership team that we can then go and bounce ideas off of, get suggestions from, and make decisions on which way to go for either office.
Gotcha.
But we're still learning. Obviously, it's only been 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only been 3 years now, so it's still a learning process. But it's been really awesome being able to, like I said, bounce those ideas off of other owners and then that are impacted by that decision.
Gotcha. Now, were you in any type of peer groups or communities prior to joining up with Bacheler and kind of feeding off information back and forth with each other?
We weren't. So after we joined Bacheler, they were members of True Peer.
Okay.
And so we went to those meetings as well and got a lot of ideas from them as well.
Gotcha. Now, and we talked a little bit about this at our panel, but, I'm a big community guy. Obviously, we have our established community here. How was that introduction into that space? Because I can tell you from like when I was introduced to it, I was in the tech industry for about 14 years. I started my break fix shop for about a couple years. I thought I knew it all. Everything was great. Not trying to, rock the boat. And then I just remember Googling for some forums or something like that, found an online forum, then led me to a podcast. That's how I started listening to podcasts. And then the network that the MSP Unplugged kind of splintered off of was kind of our home. And then I learned more in those 6 months from talking to other MSPs and peers and things of that nature than by myself. I'm just curious on how eye-opening was that for whether it's True Methods, whether it was speaking with other set of MSPs for a combined effort and goal.
Yeah.
Kind of walk me through about how was that experience for you?
So I haven't attended on a regular basis those meetings. My partners go to those on a regular basis, and I get the secondhand information from them.
Gotcha.
However, I have gone to several networking events like we're doing here, and those are invaluable because you get real world experience. Everyone's a marketer when it comes to them selling you tools and different whatever it might be methodologies. So they're going to sell you it, and it's going to sound great. But then when you get a real world application, it could be a different story, Yep. And it all depends too sometimes on your implementation of it. We could suck at implementing it, and then it could be a crap show from there,
Yeah.
But honestly, bouncing ideas off of people at these peer groups has been extremely helpful because you've got people who said, I've done that. It didn't work for us. It might work for you. You take everything with a grain of salt, right? I mean, people are different. People have different situations, different markets, different verticals. Something that doesn't work for healthcare might work for legal, vice versa. Who knows?
Yep.
But those peer groups have been pretty eye-opening to finances as well. Because, True Methods talks a lot about your numbers, smart numbers, right? They want to make sure your margins are on track no matter what. There's no excuses at that point, right? If it was just me, I'd be like, oh, this is a bad quarter. Well, I was busy. I had a vacation. We had a baby get born, whatever. Excuses.
Yeah.
Those peer groups, they don't care. I mean, they do, obviously, but they don't care what your numbers are the numbers, and they have to be right.
I want to take a quick minute to talk about today's sponsor, ScalePad Control Map, the only compliance platform built for MSPs. If you're being asked to lead on compliance but not sure where to start, or stuck in spreadsheets or juggling tools that weren't built for you, you're not alone. Most tools make compliance harder. Control Map was built to simplify, scale, and sell compliance as a service. Automated frameworks like SOC 2, HIPAA, and more, cutting the busy work, and gives you everything you need to go all the way to audit. Turn what used to feel overwhelming into a repeatable revenue-driving service. Most compliance tools create work. Control Map helps you build a business. Learn more at scalepad.com/unplugged.
It's always been, what are the finances and what are you doing to help you with your financial goals? And it's crazy on how we don't, as MSPs, think about that first. Right? A good friend of mine, Matt Lee over at Paxaid and Cyber Matt Lee, I remember him doing a session and he said specifically, an MSP is in business for not mitigating risk, not making sure that your client is defensible as possible so that they're not deemed negligent for their end user. MSPs are in business for pure, and he used an expletive, profit. And that's what is amazing on how people don't look in that, because it's true. Because if you don't have the lifeblood of the business, you're going to go out of business, right?
Yeah. And
And so it's amazing what the difference between meeting with your peers and a peer group and a structured one that's been around for so long, such as True Methods, just drives on, are the real conversations happening, right? And allowing you to understand a little bit more on like, hey, this probably the things we should probably were talking about, or maybe you were talking about those, but not into the depth that they were probably explaining it, right? We're always getting involved on the tool sprawl, the shiny tool syndrome. I think you actually brought that up in the panel today.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a scenario, maybe even in the early days, where you kind of got stuck on that? And what did you do to either A, get out of it, whether you're talking to someone else or kind of just realizing what was going on? Because, our audience here, they're under 3 million, less than 20 employees. So, they're trying to figure out, what's the best combination with the best amount of resources to provide effective support, right?
Yeah.
And, I think with so many things that are out there, everyone's selling widgets, what makes the most sense? A collaborative effort. But I was just curious on your kind of process and, as you mentioned that, how did you kind of run through that and realize, all right, we got to figure something out here?
I will say that's not to toot my own horn. I feel like that's one positive I brought to the table with Bacheler, with the merger.
Okay.
So before the merge, we would focus on one tool at a time. We would get everything we can possibly get out of that tool and that vendor. Even when it comes to like MDF, requesting assistance, leads, whatever it might be. If you focus on one tool and get the most out of it and then move to the next, it's a lot cleaner setup, right? You've already got it all documented and understood. When we moved to Bacheler, there was obviously a lot more buying power there, and there was a lot more tools that they already had. And so there was a lot of tools that weren't really fully implemented and weren't really completely rolled out the correct ways.
Yeah.
So realistically, like what we kind of decided to do was get an application champion.
Okay.
So for each of our tools, we would assign one person to be responsible for making sure that tool is completely onboarded, rolled out, documented.
Okay.
And then he or she would be the application expert or champion who would be able to answer any questions we had over that tool. Because once you get 20 employees,
Right.
a lot of people using the tool, there's gonna be a lot of questions and things come up, and you need someone to be able to be the go-to resource for that.
Now, prior to joining Bacheler, what was the size of that MSP? And then joining into Bacheler, what was the size of the MSP now? Because I have a documentation question, but I want to tailor this to, one, the audience listening in, and two, kind of your experience. But what was the sizes of both of those?
Yeah, so when we started with Bacheler in 2022, we had 6 employees total in our Nashville office.
Okay.
Now, in combined, there's about 30 engineers between the two locations. In Nashville, we're down to about 4.
Okay.
So
with that, documentation is so important, right?
Yeah.
And everyone has to commit to being able to do this. One, was there a documentation methodology that you had preferred or ended up following because of onboardings that have gone wrong, missed steps, maybe even bad documentation? Is there a process or path that you have chosen, and is there a tool that you really love that has really helped drive that documentation process for the company in both locations?
Yeah, so I get really passionate about documentation. So I'm an engineer at heart, right? And it always frustrated me when I went to look for a password and it wasn't somewhere where it was supposed to be. So I get really passionate about documentation. Before the merge, we were in IT Glue already, and we documented probably for the first 2 weeks of onboarding a client. We spent the majority of the time documenting serial numbers, account numbers, setups, floor plans, anything and everything for that client we could possibly document, we would. After the merge, they were still with IT Glue, which was great.
Okay.
So we stuck with IT Glue for all of our documentation needs. But we also have a process for ongoing documentation, because we know documentation is never done, right? It's never fully documented.
Right.
Things change, things happen. So we added a flag on our ticketing system that says documentation needed, yes, no, or unknown. So that way, when a person that's on the support team gets a ticket, goes to work on something, and they can't find documentation, they just flag it as documentation needed, yes. We have a weekly report that goes out. All these tickets say yes. We need to go to our TAMs. We call them TAMs, Technical Alignment Managers. If the TAM for that client is, they get a ticket every week that says your documentation needs to be updated, and here's the reason why, here's what they couldn't find, here's where the problem was. So that is kind of our process for making sure we're continually updating that documentation. And before the merger, I told everyone at the Nashville office, I said, look, I don't want to hear any complaining. If you didn't go write a documentation for it, don't complain about the help desk, because they didn't have anything to go off of. So yeah, that flag and the ticket helps a lot to continue that documentation process.
I love that. Now, did you, so when that flag happens and it goes back to the TAM, is it the TAM's responsibility to update that documentation? And that's their role, understanding that, hey, this is what's going on. Okay, got it.
It is. We use them as our technical alignment manager. So we have standards that we come up with that we want all of our clients to align to.
Yeah.
And then also budget and plan for if they're out of alignment to that.
No.
Part of that is to also document their environment as they're going through and doing the checklist, because they're going through and reviewing all the items. Do you have servers that are under 5 years and under warranty still, or computers under 5 years under warranty still, and saying yes or no to those.
Yeah.
But while they're doing that, they could also be documenting what we might have missed during onboarding or things that have changed as they've gone on.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
The reason we exist is because you cannot stay ahead of all threats. It's impossible to detect every threat out there before it becomes an issue. So what we do is we block by default. And when you block everything by default, it really doesn't matter if it's known to be bad. If it's not on the list, it cannot run in your environment. And that is our core focus. Zero trust principles, block first, limit what applications can do. And the other stuff, yes, we chase the threats, we hunt the threats, we do everything else, but that's the backup. The core of Threat Locker is zero trust. The team is the real part of it. Cyber heroes, we call them, and they range from everyone from the marketing department right through 24-hour, 365-day-a-year support to our clients, which is less than 30-second response time. We've got some of the most advanced threat intelligence team, advanced development teams in the world, and we're constantly hiring and growing that team. And that's what allows us to deliver the best service.
Now, when it comes to onboarding, right, and we do re-onboardings as well, just to make sure everything's kind of in the right process. How have you seen the ability of, or how should let me rephrase this? When onboarding a client, right, there's always so many things that you may not know, and you get to a point where you've documented on a process where, okay, this is a good shot or an eyesore for, and the ability to say, all right, I think we can move on to implementation.
Yeah.
How long would you say between prospect signing to fully onboarded is about your onboarding and documentation process?
So once the prospect signs, obviously we got to schedule the onboarding date. That's where we go out and install agents and then start documenting everything. We also schedule a post-onboarding meeting with that client. So typically that's 30 days after the start.
Okay.
So that's a 30-day, within the first 30-day window, we'd have the majority of our onboarding items done.
Yeah.
So we can then have that post-onboarding meeting to review findings. If there's erroneous findings we found, like, oh, you've still got 3 Windows 7 computers out here, or heaven forbid XP, whatever. So we kind of bring that up to them about 30 days after our onboarding initial onboarding date.
Gotcha. Because you talk to so many MSPs, and sometimes you hear them like, "Oh, we can do it in 7 days. Oh, we can do it in 2 weeks." And there's no possible way that you can comb through a client's documentation properly.
Right.
There's just no way. For us, we always say it's anywhere between 30 to about 45 days.
Yeah.
Like, that's the sweet spot. Really, 38 to 42 is really the right point to it.
Yeah.
And that's really going down the line of trying to figure out, all right, from cloud to keyboard, do we have it all?
Yeah.
Right? And going from there. And so the reason I bring up documentation is because I truly believe documentation is the key to all just issues and preventing what I like to call unplanned work, which is taken from a book called The Phoenix Project and Theories of Constraint and things of that nature. But ultimately, really documentation sits on there because, onboarding feeds the documentation. And a bad onboarding is probably why you're going to have a terrible experience with that client moving
Absolutely.
forward, right?
Yep.
And so, from viewing in that aspect of it, kind of culminating and now running the Nashville office and working with Montgomery, how has been the synergy of maybe even tag teaming on resources? Because, I would imagine coming from, even though you had the same similar services and the same tools, there's a consolidation, right? That
There
goes
is,
through, and there's a way of training and a tier of systems. How was that transition specifically to the point of, again, people and technical ability because of the client experience? How did that translate over to Bacheler? Did that go over smoothly with your clients? Was the experience really not noticeable, or did you find some gotchas that you wish you kind of probably would have known?
Oh, yeah.
That could probably check off to someone maybe going through, maybe helping another colleague, maybe they're planning to merge or buying a book of business.
Yeah.
Any lessons there?
Yeah, so we have, like, I have a running list of lessons learned
Okay.
as we go. Obviously, like I said, when we first did the merger, we made the announcements to the clients, right? We insured them nothing would change and they'd still be supported. We transitioned our support desk or help desk down to the Montgomery office since they already had it staffed, and we had just the one person up here running it.
That makes sense.
So we utilized their staff for that. It did not go well. Clients were upset. The key to that was just over communicating with those clients. So we told them what we were doing. We told them, give us any feedback you got, and then we followed up with them pretty regularly. I think once a month we were asking how things were going, how are they liking it, and they were very verbal and vocal.
Sure. Yeah.
They did not like it. And as of probably about this time last year, we transitioned it back to Nashville, to where we're now doing it in-house in the Nashville office for our clients.
For the Nashville?
Just for the Nashville, yeah.
Okay,
so we kind of merged the two support desks together, and now we've split them back apart.
Got it. Okay. And you have found the experience has improved very much so? Okay.
Yep. They've been pretty happy with that.
Now, do you think that was because of the locality and just your technicians understanding the Nashville market versus utilizing the Montgomery office? Or do you think there was just more of a process problem that it just felt more easier to keep it in-house because you can keep an eye on it?
I'd say a little of both. Okay. So in Montgomery, they utilized support coordinators to take calls, update tickets, and then send it to a level 1 to work. Whereas in Nashville, we did support coordinators and level 1s were kind of a combined role. So our level 1 is the one answering the call and working the issue as the call comes in.
Got it.
So they were, I don't want to say spoiled, but they were a little spoiled with getting their first touch resolution when they first called.
Versus having to go through an escalation path to
Correct.
try to...
Correct. So there was another layer that we added by going to that support desk.
Yeah. No, I and listeners will hear, I've gone through a very strenuous 18 months of support issues for our service desk. We had our help desk that we built out from in Venezuela, and then my lead technician was poached, and so he got removed, and then from there, he went ahead and had, we were deciding, do we want to go ahead and rebuild, or do we want to go ahead and get to a scalable port? Then we can, if we want to get scalable, we then can focus on getting a outsourced help desk, right? And so we decided to go that route. The first company, great people, didn't have the technical acumen that we were looking for. The second set of guys that we had just were not in the greatest, the amount of just hoping they can get help, getting calls in from the morning, and then it just, hey, we'll give you a call at 3:00, then the schedule for the next day was unacceptable, right? And so again, our clients were used to this. They were spoiled, as you mentioned, these one touches,
right?
And not having that piece as well. So I totally get you from there. But no, this was a great conversation. I think this is a great insight on kind of that transition. Yeah. Kind of a little bit about yourself. If there was one thing to leave with someone that may be listening, that may be considering possibly either doing some type of merging of acquisition, or maybe even looking to possibly join forces with someone, is there anything that you feel like strongly that, hey, if you were to redo this all again, how would you kind of go about it?
There's, like I said, I got a list of them, but I'd say the number one thing for us would be to keep your branding, because you've got brand awareness, and as soon as that goes away, your credibility goes away. They don't know who you are. Even though you've been in the area for 10 years, that doesn't really mean anything because they've never seen your name or never heard your name. So keeping your branding would be my number one thing is to recommend you do, because there's a lot to that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Justin, I appreciate you coming out here and spending some time with us there. And we thank you for tuning in today. If you want to listen to more podcasts like this, head over to youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification so you can go ahead and see every video podcast that comes available. Or if you would like to take us on the go, we are on all your favorite podcatcher apps. You are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, say that 3 times fast, to name a few. Once again, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.